All right, welcome back to Cup of Joe. I'm sorry for that name. A series of Facebook Live conversations on topics that are among the most important to the constituents of the Hampshire Franklin Worcester District. We launched this series in February. Shout out to Caitlin Billings, our intrepid communication and engagement director. And we wanted to open up a new way at this pretty pressing time for our team to get timely information out to the people we work for and actually feature the folks who are among the most major thought leaders in the Commonwealth right now. So you can check out my YouTube channel. I can't believe I have one to catch up on our first 4 episodes. And they were featuring Senator Cindy Friedman, who's a good friend to the Senate, a great colleague here, Senator Jason Lewis, Senator Bill Driscoll, and the latest is one with Northampton Youth Commissioner co-chair Amelia Durbin. Today, after the lead up, I'm really honored to share that we have an extraordinarily special guest on Cup of Joe, and that's Senate President Karen Spilka. So representing Metro West communities of Middlesex and Norfolk District, that's Ashland, Framingham, Holliston, Hopkinton, Medway, and Natick, Senate President Spilka is a dedicated champion of issues such as mental health, juvenile justice, and services for the elderly, disabled communities. But friends, I could go on and on for this next few minutes that we're going to be able to talk to the Senate President, because I will say that in my 6+ years in the Senate, I have seen this Senate President be a champion of things that we care about, actually everything that we care about. She's got a huge heart, an even bigger brain, an even stronger spine and constitution. And she's been a great mentor to me since I had the privilege of getting to represent you. So during her career, Senate President Spilka has been a social worker, I'm a social worker, a small business owner, and an attorney. And she went on to become one of the first legislators in the nation to vote in favor of marriage equality and transgender protections. Senate President Spilka's first priority as Senate President was the passage of the Student Opportunity Act, which is a culmination of a 20-year effort which combined the largest increase in education funding in Massachusetts history with changes to make future education funding more equitable. And she hasn't stopped there, because she's continuing to work with legislators like me on ways in which the Senate can continue to iterate on how to help our communities in Western Massachusetts benefit. So please do check out her website for more information, and we'll dive into our conversation today. Welcome, Madam President.
Thank you for having me. Of course, I'm very honored to be with you.
Well, the honor is mine. We'll dive right in.
Okay.
We could have had 90 pages of questions.
That's okay.
So thank you for tackling what we have before us. So under your leadership, and this has been a hallmark of my time in the Senate has rolled out a series of changes in the rules that govern our chamber, and aimed at, in your words, giving people a better view of the process of crafting and debating legislation undertaken in the Senate. You want us to work harder and smarter and more transparently. You make that really clear all the time. And embodied in the Senate's rule package are things like posting our votes publicly.
We've tried to do that for several sessions now. We are doing that. You go to the Senate clerk's webpage, right up front, they should have the bills that the Senate committee or the joint committees vote out, and the senator vote on that specific bill.
It's remarkable. Can you just talk a little bit about what motivated you to lead this? Because you've really been pushing us in the Senate to do more. Every rules package has been, I will say, an iteration on the past, with this one really rocketing us forward.
I believe that, first of all, transparency is a good thing, a necessary thing, and we want transparency. We want more transparency. We need people to better understand what we do, how we do, so that people understand how hard you and other senators work to getting bills through the legislature. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of hard effort, a lot of collaboration, a lot of research, a lot of meeting with other people. But folks like you, Senator Comerford, work hard and persist and get bills through. But it takes there is a process. But the more people understand that process, the more transparent that process is, the more they can understand what is happening and the more they can jump in and participate when that participation opportunity provides itself, whether it be a hearing or you publicizing a bill that you filed, they know how to contact you, or the committee that it's before, or when it comes before the Senate, they know how to contact you or the Senate. Everybody who has a better feeling for what is happening. We benefit from more input from the public and more civic understanding. So our product, or whatever it is, a policy, a bill, is better when we are transparent and more people are involved. So, we have taken measures just, within the last few years that all of our spending is reported.
Right.
We are audited by a certified public neutral accountant every year, and that audit, once it's completed, goes also on the Senate Clerk's website. So somebody can open up the Massachusetts Senate Clerk website online and see the audits right there. Open them up, you can read them, you can see, you can tell how much we've spent all the way down to paper clips. And on top of that, we send our information, our contracts, our procurement issues to the comptroller's office, and that is all posted online. Recently, we have added not only to posting votes online that the Senate has tried to do for years, but all of our plain English bill summaries are online. Testimony is being made online. Live streaming of all hearings, of debates, and we're going on right now having a formal session debating. People could be opening up that live streaming and watching the debate right on the Senate floor. So we are opening up every Monday, the beginning of the week. If somebody goes to the State Senate Facebook page or website, they will see a posting of all of the hearings coming up. So if you were chairing a hearing, it would say Senator Comerford chairing, hearing X on the topic, tell you where it's located and what the hours are. And that is for every single day for the week. So we are trying to be even more transparent than we ever were before.
I have to say, it's really exciting because I believe, like you do, that we're better when our constituents see what we're doing and can act to make the budget decisions we make stronger, policy decisions we make stronger.
Speaking of budget decisions, for the first time, some of our conference committee meetings have been public. That was part of the Senate proposal for the joint rules for the joint legislative committees. There have been several, even the ones discussing the rules, there have been several that have been open to the public and open to journalists. And just the other day, when the Fair Share budget conference committee bill was completed, that was open to the public. That has not happened before. So we will keep pushing for more transparency and I think making the process better.
Thank you. I'm with you on that.
Thank you.
We're going to move the conversation to agriculture. So in July 2023, when a series of storms really crushed Western Massachusetts farms, you came to Western Massachusetts and you talked to farmers about what they were going through. And then you delivered. You delivered $20 million for the first time to farmers and $15 million to municipalities to help them recover, rebuild, which was really extraordinary. And so you were in a Hatfield farm up to your ankles in mud, really
with
there.
You.
Yeah,
with
so I was
you.
there. No, I was totally there. But you were there to make sure that these farmers understood that the Senate had their backs and that they were so important. And in the economic development law passed, you made sure that there were a number, last session, there were a number of provisions to help farmers stay farming. And the stakes are really high, as you know. More and more farms are facing economic calamity. We're losing farmland, about 27,000 acres in a 5-year period. So it's pretty significant. So talk to me about why you have such a staunch commitment to farmers and why you want the Senate to continue to push out strong agriculture policy.
First of all, I really believe strongly, and I know you are such a vocal ally in regional equity when it comes to sending our resources from what people perceive. It's the Boston State House sending it to our resources, our funding, our programs, whatever it might be, all across the state. Everybody here in our state pays taxes. Everybody deserves some of those taxes back to help improve their quality of life. And we need to make sure, and that is why even with the recent Fair Share bill, you know, the focus was on the MBTA, which I recognize we need to help make that more stable and stronger. But we also need to help our regional transit authorities across the state. So many of them do not have evening service or sufficient or weekend service, or have the connections that people assume that they have or should have, connecting other ones. RTAs, regional transit authorities, are a lifeline for so many people in so many regions. And we should be growing those connections and growing those RTA so that we provide the service for people to go to the doctors, go to hospitals, visit with their relatives, go to work, take their children to school, get off the road if they have a car, being able to get off the road and take public transportation. So for so many reasons, so that's just one small snapshot. And that's when I became senator, my area, the Metro West, did not have an RTA. People assumed we did, but we were the largest area of the state that did not. And I fought hard for that, to get that. So it really highlighted to me that every area, everything we look at, whether it be transportation, school funding, or economic development, or agriculture, that we have to have regional equity built in. And if we are helping our economic development of our life sciences, of our medical facilities, whatever else, agriculture is also a lifeline for Massachusetts. And there are lots of farmers, and farmers are still at risk. The average farm produces about close to $86,000 worth of agricultural products every year. We rely on them as a Commonwealth. Our schools rely on them to give fresh local produce to our kids, which we want that to continue. True. And, you know, farmers markets. I was at the Ashland one just this past Saturday, and the products, the produce is just beautiful, whatever it might be. So we need to help ensure, especially at a time when this federal administration is cutting back aid to farmers, we need to make sure that we do all that we can. And I was happy to be in that muck and mud and so see. It was sad to see all the puddles and the rain, and I hope that never happens again. But you're right, we will. And thanks for your advocacy, your strong advocacy in raising this and inviting me out there to make sure that the Senate stood with Western Mass and the farmers.
Well, they will never forget it. And actually, we were in Bernie Smrowski's field. And I'm sorry to tell you that the Hatfield farmers have already had 3 floods this summer. So there's a piece of work that maybe we'll do together in the environmental bond around inland waterway resistance, coastal resilience. But they're tough, right? They're tough.
They are tough.
They're not letting go, but it's hard to be a farmer.
Right, it is.
And I just want to thank you, because under your leadership, the Senate restored full funding for the Healthy Incentives Program. And so out in Western Mass, folks know, and I think it's across the Commonwealth, HIP is a triple win, right? It's a win for, as you say, the folks who need the food. That's the biggest, benefit of HIP, but also for farmers
who grow the food,
who can have their SNAP customers turn into their EBT customers turn into their HIP customers too, and then of course for local economies.
Right.
So thank you.
Oh, thank you
for that. You already touched on this regional equity, right? You've made it really clear, right? So you just touched on the Fair Share bill. The Fair Share bill for the Senate that we'll pass today is a completely different blueprint, and it really sees 351 cities and towns. And you always say, I'm the Senate President, I'm going to care about 351 cities and towns. So where do you think you want to go with this? Like, where are you proudest of? You already touched on some of this, of the Senate, like succeeding in regional equity, and how can we continue this conversation under your leadership?
Well, I think that there's always areas for improving regional equity, so that, again, if we do a transportation bond bill, we make sure that our funding goes there. With the millionaires tax surplus, the Senate included funding for roads, bridges, culverts. There are people in Boston that said to me, "What is a culvert?"
What is a culvert?
And my
Right.
response was, point made, that you are focused on the T and you don't even know what a culvert is. You live in my area, Central Mass, Western Mass. There are lots of culverts that need assistance as well. Otherwise, they'll flood and take over the area and destroy homes or businesses or farms or whatever. So we need to take a look at that. For education, we've tried to look at rural schools and put extra funding for rural schools. Looking at local contribution in our Senate budget, we have a study to look at the local contribution to help our communities, particularly our smaller communities, but our middle-sized communities too. There are many communities that are not the larger cities, but the mid to small ones that are struggling also, and we need to look at that.
You actually started to get into education, which was the next thing. So this is fabulous. And I just want to tell folks who are watching that the Senate President talked about the transportation provisions in the fair share that's going forward. And so in addition to the culverts, which the Senate paid a lot of attention to, which are big news out where we are, there's a microtransit investment. The Senate President knows that 9 of our communities in Franklin County have no RTA service, never mind fixed route service, right? They have one senior van that maybe goes to the Big Y, right? Once a week. And maybe we'll have, with the Senate's help, a more robust microtransit program. And she also has a commitment to Chapter 90. Chapter 90 is road and bridge money. And under the Senate's proposals, half is going out in the other one formula and half is going out by road miles. Okay, and we're back. I had to leave the Senate President just for a moment so that I could go vote on the bill that's before us in the chamber. So thanks, Madam President.
Of course.
For allowing for the pause.
That's important.
So where we left off was the Senate President was talking about regional equity, her abiding commitment, and we were talking about how that manifests in the Senate's work. And we were talking specifically around transportation and the fair share bill that we put forward and the compromise bill that's before us. We were also talking about education funding. So the Senate President started running because she cared about public education. And in the Senate budget is a working group to look at the municipal contribution formula, which hasn't been looked at in 17 years and would be a game changer if we could really understand it. And then it'll be part of this larger conversation over time about how Western Mass and the realities we have around rural and low and declining enrollment schools, how we fit into the Commonwealth in a more workable way, I'll say, because our districts, as the President knows, are struggling. If we could look at the municipal contribution, it would be everything for us, as you know. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
It's something I don't think our communities know enough about,
the
power of what's happening with the municipal contribution and how if we're able to look at it and perhaps, suggest some changes, it could be a lot of stress, pain, relief. But I've taken the President's time a lot, so we're gonna shift now to what's happening at the federal level. Madam President, I know that you, more than many people in the Commonwealth, feel the impact of what's happening in Washington, D.C. as you try to run a Senate, create budgets, create policy to protect our people and to keep the Commonwealth moving forward. And you announced Response 2025, and you reconfigured the Steering and Policy Committee to, in your words, be more nimble, be more responsive, act more quickly. And I wonder if you could just talk to us a little bit about that and why you did it.
Well, as the session started in January, this past January 2025, the same time Trump became president, and with concern that some things may change, and in wanting the Senate to be more nimble, to be faster with the ability to get bills through committees, get them to the Senate and to the floor of the Senate for debate and passage. A lot of people don't realize we can't debate a bill on the floor unless we physically have it in the Senate. Bills are filed, about 8,000 bills are filed every 2-year session. Maybe a third of them are from the senators and 2/3 the House, because there's 40 senators, 160 reps. So the joint committees get assigned those bills. It sometimes takes a while to get a Senate bill to be heard even in these committees. So we are, and then once it's heard, they have to be voted out of that committee and physically sent to the Senate. If it's a Senate bill, the House bills go to the House now. And we changed some of the joint rules to make that so and to make that happen. So we are, Senate chairs are chairing committees, putting up some more Senate bills. That's how we're dealing with the data shield bill. That's how we're moving the privacy bill, the location shield, and many other responses that we're hoping to do as the Senate Response 2025 in response to the Trump administration's chaos and pain that they are trying to inflict, actually. So once we get the bill in the Senate, we can start working on it. We always vet the bill, make sure that the stakeholders, the administration, that if they're in charge of implementing that bill, then what secretariat, what agency, we meet with them to make sure that it's feasible, it's practical, it'll actually help people.
Right, exactly.
The language is correct. Sometimes we may need to meet with the Attorney General or her team and others, so that by the time we have passed that bill, some time has passed, because we need to make sure that it's written well, it makes sense, it can be implemented, and in the long run, the major thing, it will actually help businesses, citizens, residents, and communities, whatever the population is. So that does take a little bit of time, but we are trying to expedite that now to get them done. I think the Senate realizes that two of the main things that our constituents want, people across the state, they want action, they want things done. But that is why I just took a moment to try to explain why we are working hard to take action, but we can't just pull a bill out of thin air. We have to have the legislative process. So they want action and they want transparency, and the Senate is working very hard to improve both.
Amen. I say yes. I say yes to that. And today I know that you were talking publicly about a bill we're going to take up next week.
Yes.
Which you've been working on and supporting Senator Friedman and working on, and your team and Senate Ways and Means for months.
Right.
To get right, to strengthen the work that you led us to do around reproductive care and gender affirming care. And I know my constituents were thrilled with that work. And I don't think that we would have understood back then that it needed to be even stronger.
Right. Stronger and broader
Stronger
for the protections. Yeah.
Right.
So that our law enforcement is protected and others involved in the process of women's health care and gender affirming care.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for your help with it too.
Well, it's you, your team, and Senator Friedman. I'm just going to be really thrilled to vote yes, honestly.
So will I.
Yeah.
So will I.
So, Madam President, as we end, I know you would want to do this. I want to do this. We should just take a moment to talk about the assassination of Minnesota Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, and the attempted assassination of State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette. You've been, I believe, really moving on social media and certainly to senators and publicly about what that meant to you, what it should mean to all of us who care about people living in public service and our democracy, and what we should want, our governments to do, right, which is to debate and to disagree, but in ways that are civil and part of a democratic process. I don't know whether you want to comment here at all.
Yeah, like probably you, the other senators, and all of your listeners, I was absolutely heartbroken and enraged and very sad over hearing about the assassination of Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, and the attempted assassination of John Hoffman and his wife. The founding fathers believed, and we should still be emulating this so strongly, that our democracy is strongest when we have discussion and debate. We can disagree, and honestly, I welcome disagreement, because lots of time having that disagreement sparks new ideas, seeds of new things, and that can then grow into spectacular policies or bills that may not have happened if the disagreement did not occur. But that disagreement should always be respectful, something where it's debate, not political violence that accomplishes nothing. And you know, as Senate President, I am very protective over the other senators and our whole staff here in the Senate and our team here, because people here work so hard. They are so dedicated. If there's something I could share or leave all of your listeners and with, it is amazing how hard senators and all of your teams, all of the senators' staff and teams work to get the job done, to help a constituent, whether it be a district call, whether it be a policy, whether it is to clarify a bill, to get something ready for budget, whatever it is. Everybody, the hours that people put in here are astounding, and they are all terrific. And I would love for people to be able to see that for a day, a week, to get an idea of how hard people work. And nobody, I don't care what job they do, should ever have to worry about their safety because of a disagreement or a difference of opinion. So we will strive to help concerned folks, and to make sure that we are as safe as possible, and that people better understand what we do through education, action, and through sharing with people what we do.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. That's very well said. And I do think that's a way to honor the lives of these state lawmakers, right? Is just to keep going in Massachusetts,
right?
Protecting our people, as you say, defending the Commonwealth, continuing to try to make people's lives better.
Right.
I really loved what you said about bills, right? Bills have to, of course, be legally correct, and they have to work in terms of implementation. But your leadership in the Senate is about making real people's lives better.
Right, right. People don't realize that just last year alone, last session, the Senate passed, I think, like 60 separate bills, not the big bills, the budget or the big bills, but 60 bills that, many of them did not make it to the governor's desk. We'll keep on going. One of them was your blue envelope bill. That same day we did the wheelchair bill, so that if somebody's wheelchair breaks, the companies have to either fix it.
I love that. My constituents love that bill.
Yeah, that is a real hardship if somebody's wheelchair breaks and they can't get anywhere. So the wheelchair company would have to fix it or get a replacement for the time period. And these are common sense, important, critical bills to help people's lives and help make it easier for our residents. And that's what we all are here for. So, again, I ask those that are listening, if people have ideas for our response, Senate Response 2025 initiative, please let my office know, and we will pursue that.
My folks are not shy, as you know, and I love you because you are not shy. And they love that I'm a member of the Steering and Policy. So thank you for that appointment.
And I count on your advice and counsel so much, and I'm thankful that you're part of my leadership team.
I'm glad to be on the team. So, Madam President, we're going to let you go. We've kept you for a long time. Friends, we've been talking with Senate President Karen Spilka on this Cup of Joe podcast, which still makes me blush and sweat a little bit when I say that. Thank you for tuning in. Really grateful to the Senate President for taking the time to talk about important issues in our region. And I'll be back again soon. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.